Hello, I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to Finextra TV. Today we're in The Hague for the Temenos Community Forum 2019, the theme of which is Digital Banking Reloaded. Joining me now in the studio is Gareth Lodge from Celent and Shrey Rastogi from Temenos. Hello gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And now we're talking about payments transformation, and Gareth, coming to you first, I think we'll all agree that banks need to rethink their approach to their payment strategy, but do you think they're doing a good job so far?
We think they should be rethinking their strategy, but I'm not sure all the banks necessarily get that themselves. We have to just look at the deadline for PSD2, the RTSs, and how many banks, 40+%, miss that to realise that there's a very much a two-tier market going on. There's banks like BBVA who not only were well ahead of the deadline, but they have API stores, they have a data mart. They're really embracing this, and that's all been driven by a very different type of payment strategy. So I think everybody has a strategy, but not all strategies are created equal.
All right, and Shrey, coming to you then, what did you think are the major areas banks need to think about to succeed?
Sure. I think the exact plan will depend on the bank's unique circumstances, but there are clearly 3-4 key tenets emerging here. The first one is to absolutely recognize that this is a front-to-back, end-to-end payment transformation. Banks need to plan for that. It doesn't mean it has to be big bank, but it also means that it can't be just a front-end channel renovation or just adding a new layer which will solve their problems. They have to think end-to-end. One good strategy we have seen quite successful is the build and renovate, where we start with an entire stack, modern stack, and do a migration of a particular product, a business segment, or a consumer group in an initial stage, and then build on it. So that could be a good strategy to build on. The second, I would say, is to focus on continuous deployment and start taking that as in your organization as a way forward. Just because of the speed, agility, and flexibility required to deal with the payment challenges and changes that are coming down the line, it's essential that bank move toward a nimble architecture and continuous deployment. Third, I would say, is data. Start treating data as an enterprise asset, focus on data lifecycle management capabilities. They are quite essential to then leverage AI as well. I think established banks have a very big head start here compared to new entrants, where they already have a lot of data. It's all about how do you train your models, and again for AI you need a lot of data. So data as an asset is a very important thing. And finally, I would say is API first strategy has to be adopted. We know that it's certain that tomorrow's the way the banks will operate is in a marketplace, which means that APIs are the only way to scale and join up so many different third parties together. Now, just adding a layer with some API capability will not go far. The underlying applications need to be able to expose multiple endpoints, exits, and hooks to be really able to consume and expose APIs seamlessly. And therefore, a modern solution which has got API capability is really the need of the hour.
Some good advice there. But then what happens when it's all achieved? I mean, how will it evolve? Gareth?
I think that's one of the interesting dynamics. We don't know where we're going to evolve to. The only thing we know is that we have to change, because you just got the fintechs who have been very heavily invested in to try and disrupt this market, and a very large prize at stake. It's our price to lose at the moment. So I think the question is, how flexible and agile are you going to be in not just your technology, which is central to this, but in terms of your thinking. And I think it's going to require a change in mind shift from being proactive and incremental to let's think very radically about where this might go and be prepared for a lot more different eventualities than we are today.
All right, and sort of looking ahead, do you think that there's going to be enough room in the market for all these banks to coexist in harmony together?
That's a very interesting question. I guess every banking stockholder would be thinking on those lines as well. My view is it's an emphatic yes. There is enough headroom for more banks, for existing banks to grow as well as new to come in. Two macro stats are that payment volumes are growing at about 11% annually. I think going down the line there will be further higher rates of payment volume rises because of you've got now Internet of Things driving micropayments, wearables, cashless economies everywhere around the world, plus crypto, stable coins, digital currencies all on the rise. So the volume is going to really spike. So that's one point. The other is, currently the global payment revenue is also projected to grow at 10-11%. So we are looking at almost a 1 trillion new revenue being added in the next 5 to 7 years, and that's clearly big numbers for banks to go after. I think where it'll really separate winners and the so-called laggards would be the bottom line, or how efficient they are and how much they can do STP and super high STP rates here really, and how scalable their solutions are to really make good margins on their payment business.
Some really exciting developments ahead.
Yeah.
Gareth?
I mean, I think Shrey raised some really good points, but I think there's a fundamental point that we've got to remember. A lot more entrants who are starting with fresh technology. So you're not just competing against the usual incumbents, you're competing against organisations who are focused solely around the user experience. So yes, there is space for everybody, the prize is getting bigger, but the bar is getting higher every day. And so for the banks who've had all of this to themselves, there are going to be some potential big winners if they get it right, and some very big losers if they get it wrong. And if by getting it wrong is just doing nothing.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your insights. Watch this space. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.